Welcome back. You're listening to Innovation in Government Show, sponsored by Carasoft on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guest is Steve Harris, the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Dell EMC Federal. Now, Steve, before break, we were talking a little about this IT modernization, the cybersecurity side, the workforce side, how both of them are so interrelated. Let's still talk about the workforce a little bit more in the sense of how do you attract top talent? Because I think that's the other key. One of the things that I've noticed and that we've heard time and again is the federal government struggles to keep people and then also struggles to find them and not lose them to people like Dell and Dell EMC. So talk a little bit about that, what strategies work and what are you seeing in the government in terms of how are they ensuring they have the top talent?
You know, Jason, that they're, sometimes it feels as though there's a bit of barrier to collaboration between industry and government, which is a bit of a shame. And I hear a comment similar to the one that you just made, losing top talent to industry, to commercial companies. Well, here's the interesting thing, right? Industry on a broad basis is absolutely ready to engage with federal to help them transform. And so you look at Dell EMC, which is a company that has full portfolio, endpoint to data center infrastructure. We have agile software development capability. We have cloud. We have RSA as a security component, et cetera. We actually just came together as a company about a year ago, and we've had to go through an incredible IT transformation within our own firm to enable all of these members of the Dell Technologies family to optimally do their job, right? This is a big IT project internally as an IT corporation. I'm proud to say that we drink our own champagne, and a lot of the advice that we would offer to a government agency is well reflected in the work that we've done on our own internal integrations. But the point is this, right? Whether it's consulting, whether it's actually the technology products built as a solution and delivered to government, we're absolutely ready to help with the transformation that exemplifies the best practices in industry that we are concerned will attract talent away from government. Well, so let's do it in government. I think the funding is there, right? I think that the IT leadership is there. So let's help IT leadership actually get these projects off the ground and be competitive with the rest of the commercial sector.
Do you think, though, that it's not a matter of not willing to collaborate or reach out? I mean, I see it all the time. The number of RFIs, the number of RFPs, the number of task orders for support, for help, for is not the problem, but it's the person or people that you work with as the industry in the government. The government has to have that skill set so when you say, hey, I can do X, Y, and Z for you, they have to go, oh, I understand what X, Y, and Z is, versus what I think the government got a bad reputation in the mid-2000s is just saying yes a lot because they had lost that talent or that knowledge base. And I think that's where the rub is happening, where you guys call it lack of collaboration, but I think the government would probably, just to put on that hat for a second, they would say, no, we need to have those people who can understand what you're talking about. Or maybe that's not a problem that you're seeing.
Well, I think that the problem that you're articulating exists both in the commercial world as well as in the government world. I think that what we sometimes lose focus on in government service is how dynamic and challenging a lot of the actual job descriptions within each agency are. In the commercial sector, it's equally difficult to actually build the technology model that really supports and enables these different challenging job descriptions. Today, we know that every, your average college student probably has 3 IP addresses and a bunch of devices, in their dorm room that, they have lofty expectations of their university. They'll be able to use all of these devices, in the job that they're doing. Well, that's all not also, it's also not necessarily a practical expectation, right? So the reality is how well do we define the job? How well do we pair that to the technology, both from a device as well as a workflow perspective? That will make it so that the person can come in and feel that they can be successful in what they're being asked to accomplish.
I think that's a really interesting point you bring up about defining the job, pairing the technology to the workflow, and making sure that that person is successful. And I think many times, as I think you said earlier, that the old way was just digitized versus transformed. And I think what agencies are trying to do now is they understand that maybe either the technology wasn't ready, or they weren't ready, or they just made some mistakes, and now they're moving in that direction to pair, again, as you said, the technology with the workflow. Is that something that you're seeing happening enough, or starting to really gain some momentum around?
Yeah, increasingly, I do see agencies working hard to ask the right questions, and therefore, let's say, design the right RFI, ultimately designing the right procurement, where they are able to get the optimal device, but they're also able to focus on speed to value to the mission. And government doesn't necessarily want to own all of the steps in client lifecycle management, right? They don't necessarily need to put the image on the system. They can downsize the number of IT tools that they actually have, as long as they're applying them correctly. If, let's say, it takes 30 or 45 days from the time that you actually receive a device, or worse, maybe 90 days or more in some cases, that you can work with your supplier to consolidate the steps in the client lifecycle management and, let's say, the deployment process, and actually get devices out more rapidly, and allowing people to enjoy the technology that it helps them do their job better, on a more real-time basis.
One of the keys to this transformation that you just were talking about, the workflow, pairing technology with the workflow, is this push from Congress and the administration, both the Trump administration and the Obama administration, around giving CIOs, giving agency IT leadership more authority. As we've seen the Federal IT Acquisition Reform Act, FITARA. We've seen now the Modernizing Government Technology Act, the MGT Act, is about to become law as it goes through the Defense Authorization Bill. And there's other pieces and parts that are kind of coming together. How is legislation, how is that from a policy perspective helping to move agencies forward from, again, we'll talk workforce and IT modernization?
I have a great deal of respect for folks like Congressman Hurd, Congressman Connolly, that have done a phenomenal job of leading a bipartisan approach to addressing the IT issues that plague progress in the federal government. And one piece of legislation that's out there is the transition to Best Value Procurements Act. And that I've recently heard Congressman Connolly speak a little bit about that one. It kind of serves as the trifecta, if you will, where FITARA enables the CIO to actually take charge of IT and develop an optimal strategic plan. MGT provides funding and direction to modernize government IT. These are critical elements. How do you narrow the divide between the folks that are responsible for IT and mission, and the contracting officers, the procurement community, which they're always interested in doing the right thing, but to give them a charter to move to best value procurements, rather than a situation where they feel that they have to focus on competition and specification first and foremost in an LPTA format, right? So I think I look at it as a trifecta of legislation that would really enable us to make some progress, where government can ask the right question, can ask the challenging for a challenging solution from industry that creates revolutionary progress towards transforming IT, towards transforming the workforce, through passing all of these acts.
Do you get a sense that agencies are moving toward best value more? I know there was some concern a while ago that lowest price technically acceptable LPTA was getting too much attention. agents, the pendulum swung too far to the right, let's say, and now it seems to be coming back. But are you still seeing a lot of LPTA versus best value?
The vast majority of what we see is LPTA.
Even though it's not calling out, I'm going to interrupt. Even though it's not calling out LPTA, it just the way they write it just makes you as the vendor go, they're just looking for lowest price.
Well, actually, the vast majority of the time is called out as LPTA.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, that is the vast majority of procurements that we see come down the pike. And I think that the feeling we get, and as I speak to many of my counterparts from other companies across industry, it's a very consistent message. It feels as though the procurement community has their hands tied, and that they are, managed to deliver their procurements under LPTA.
That's interesting because I know DoD, as an example, has really tried to push back against it. You don't see it as much in the civilian side, where there's either memos from OFPP or CIOs talking about it. So I'm interested that you're still seeing that. When you bring the RFIs back or the RFPs back to the government and say, hey, this is LPTA, do they go, no, it's not, this is, what we're just looking for the best value? Like, what do they say?
Well, we try not to spend a lot of time complaining.
Is that a bad business thing? Help me out here. Complaining?
Look, I have a great deal of respect for the folks that work in the contracting shops. They have one of the hardest jobs in government. And, they're trying to serve multiple masters in the way that they run their function. So all of that being said, I think the truth is that we want to be able to listen to the problems that exist in the agency, clearly understand that, devise then a solution that probably spans multiple technologies, might include some services to tie it all together, certainly would include some support elements so that sustainment goes across this solution. And now I think that delivering a technology solution along the lines of what I just described allows for much more rapid and robust progress in areas like IT modernization or workforce transformation.
Beyond getting rid of LPTA or stop using it for more complex services type, what other areas of procurement you'd like to see changed? Is it more innovation, more agile, iterative, DevOps, whatever you want to call it, or what?
Well, agile is a big one. But we also see that, when you're acquiring what we would call a solution, it should actually span the gamut of hardware, software-defined infrastructure, technology. So software, it should cite the actual workload. Right? We know that hardware runs software, software runs the world. So what is that workload? And, how have we designed a solution that really optimally supports that? Also from the perspective of continuing to develop in that space, right? So with Pivotal, which is a member of our Dell Technologies family, that agile development, extends and increases the effectiveness of that software to support the agency mission after we've delivered, let's say, a rock solid, infrastructure software defined solution as a basis.
Steve, we've had a fascinating conversation. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time. From your perspective, as you meet with your customers in the federal market, as you talk to them, what kind of advice or what should they take away from our conversation about this IT modernization journey? We know it's a journey, it's a marathon, and the federal workforce piece. Give me the sense of what should agencies keep in mind as they continue to move forward.
I'd just like to, voice our appreciation for everything that our government workers accomplish on behalf of the U.S. citizens every day, and really in every agency use case. We know that workforce transformation is dependent on optimal IT solutions. We know that, the data center in many agencies has a significant need for IT modernization. So you have to transform the technology that you put in the hands of the government end user, as well as the workflow, as they're being asked to execute on some of the most challenging job descriptions on planet Earth. The technology is the key to unlocking substantial improvements in productivity and essentially the outcomes on behalf of the U.S. citizen, all has to be done against the backdrop of great cyber hygiene. Right. And so today industry has the ability to help government with all of these different transformations. Dell Technologies in particular has the broadest portfolio of technology that we're ready to harness on behalf of the federal government as we help them navigate these transformational challenges.
Very good. Great advice. Cyber hygiene, you hit all the important pieces, transformation from a workflow perspective, and of course, modernized technology. That's all the time we have for today. You've been listening to Innovation in Government Show, sponsored by Carasoft on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. I've been your host, Jason Miller. I'd like to thank my guests today, Steve Harris, the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Dell EMC Federal. Steve, thank you so much for taking the time.
Jason, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsradio.com and search innovation.